Good morning. My name is Vip Vipperman, and I'm excited to be back in the studio today with the Backing the Bold podcast. Today, my guest, Pete Lawson, is from across the pond. Excited to get a chance to chat with Pete and hear a little bit of the arc and inherently story. Pete, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Thanks, Vip. Delighted to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so tell me about where you are in the world, Pete.
Yeah, so Vip, I'm based in a place called Guildford, which is a little outside London. So about 8 o'clock on a clock face outside London. And yeah, I work with a team here, ARC, based out of the UK and out of Europe, building some meaningful ventures, which I'm looking forward to chatting through.
Awesome. For many people, they know Eagle is based in the U.S. office in Dallas, Texas, but some folks don't realize we have European offices in Zurich, where the general partners operate, as well as the ARC studio there in the UK, and we have an office in Singapore with a venture studio as well, building companies. So it's exciting that Eagle has become, over the last few years, a truly global company. But honestly, it started that way when the founders got together 8 years ago. Europe and the US were both on the radar, and so excited to see Eagle continue to expand the horizons. Well, Pete, tell us a little bit of your backstory since a lot of the listeners don't know you. How did you get to become an entrepreneur? Did you grow up in that area? And what's your little bit of your story?
Yeah, no, thanks, Vip. I've had like many entrepreneurs, a bit of a mixed, non-straight path to being an entrepreneur. So I started out, maybe unlike many of the entrepreneurs, selling condom machines and other things in the Northeast to clubs, working men clubs here in the UK. But then have been guided on an entrepreneurial journey that's really taken me to sub-Saharan Africa, where I worked in local communities and in townships, and then back to the UK, where I worked in the City of London and retrained as a chartered accountant and really honed my business skills. But working with companies that were in the called social enterprise space here in the UK. So those that had a social mission as well as an enterprising mission. When I qualified, I became a management consultant and moved back to South Africa, where I worked with smallholder farmers and in management consultancy. And I suppose on reflection, there was a point, a day I remember very clearly where I sort of declared in a planning meeting, I'm fed up and I don't want to build slides anymore. I'd like to build businesses. And I suppose from that point onwards, there was probably another a couple more years. So I then went into the funding side and managed a debt fund, investing and lending to these social enterprises back in the UK before going to the operator side as a finance director for a large international consultancy. Um, Before then joining the ARC Venture Studio here and doing venture building directly.
That's quite a story. Uh, you got to ask, what drew you to go to Africa in the first place?
Look, it's a great question. My wife and I have a real heart to see transformation there, and so I think um, there's a principle in impact investing called additionality, where can you apply your scarce resources to create the most impact? And I think there has been from that part of the world a large brain drain of talent, and we've got a real love for it, and so we thought we would apply our skills based out there to really maximize the outcomes that we can have.
Really, really cool. Interested in when you said you did the debt fund, what type of debt did you guys focus on?
We were sort of a mezzanine debt to scale a lot of these social enterprises that had
Okay.
a limited by guarantee, so they couldn't take on equity. So it was sort of quasi-equity debt that they were taking on to scale sort of a proven concept. So sort of around seed stage and beyond, if you're sort of comparing apples with apples, which is not quite, but at that kind of level. But
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you've definitely seen quite a bit in the business scope over the years from different countries where you've, been in business to different sides of the investment world. Um, Excited to see. Tell me a little bit about your work at Arc Venture Studio and the types of things that you guys are doing there.
sure. So ARC is a venture studio where we build ventures that focus on protection, prevention, and resilience. So
Okay.
we tend to look for acute pain points in regulated industries, um, anywhere in the world, but really with an emphasis on the UK, Europe, and North America. We focus on a sort of a broad range of industries, sort of fintech, insurtech, health tech, and wealth tech. And really, what we're aiming to do, and this sort of feeds back into my background there, is we're looking to build businesses that deliver a double bottom line. So those that have both a financial and a social return.
Nice. So, talk to me a little bit about how you got involved with ARC specifically.
Sure. So there were two things. I was looking at my own entrepreneurial journey. So I was the finance director at this large international consultancy. I was considering buying a business and then sort of putting a social angle on it. And then I had a change in personal circumstance where that became a non-viable option for a range of family dynamics. And I came across Dan and the team at ARC. Um, Connected, and just there's just a beautiful alignment in visions, in values, and so I jumped on board, and yeah, and we've been building ever since.
It's awesome. So one of the things about venture studios is a lot of times once people get plugged in, sometimes they're investing with the companies, sometimes they're serving in different areas in the companies. A lot of times they kind of come in as a venture partner and then end up taking a CEO type role of one of the companies that gets incubated out of the studio. So tell me about your role at Inherently, one of the companies that's being incubated there.
Sure. So yeah, you're entirely correct, Vip. So I help with the finances with my chartered accountancy background across ARC as a studio, but then also act as a venture lead on some of the ventures. And so one of the ones I'm currently leading is called Inherently. And it's a great example of one of those ventures that's got a double bottom line. And so the problem that we started with Inherently was actually a team member who's had suffered a bereavement and was then working through the paperwork, something that's colloquially called SADMIN here in the UK,
Hmm.
and just find it a really painful process and thinking there must be a better way of going through this or solving for it. And so really putting their builder's hat on. So that's where we started with as a problem. And from there have gone along a journey as you do and to validate and pivot from the pain points. And really the problem we're trying to solve is a lot of people don't like to consider or talk about death or prepare for it, even though they know they need to do it. And so
Mhm.
this is from procrastination, high costs, or just really not knowing what they don't know and where to start. And so we've since pivoted from what we call in like the post-death space.
Okay.
Most people pick up their phone and say, "Oh, what do I do when somebody dies?" To working in the pre-death space to helping people better prepare their families and clients. So yeah, and so Inherently is a digital estate planning service that helps financial advisors and their clients better prepare their legacies. And so we're building
Interesting.
infrastructure for digital estate legacy and wealth planning to make wealth planning and estate planning seamless for them to connect their generations, families, and advisors to services under one platform. And ultimately, what we're trying to solve as a solution is we're trying to save those families both time, um, distress in what is a very vulnerable time, and money, but also give them peace of mind as well.
Absolutely. That's really powerful. That's fascinating. So you saw a problem that you guys in the Arc Venture Studio had actually, like a team member, had actually experienced and said, "Man, I wonder if we could actually figure this out because other people have this problem as well, and see if we could actually solve for it." It's really powerful.
Yeah,
And so, and again, serving people. We always talk about at Eagle. We're really passionate for serving the most vulnerable people. And oftentimes, a person is at their most vulnerable when they're at that season of losing a loved one. So, talk to us about some of the experiences you guys had there. What's like for the listener out there? What's one story that kind of really defines the work, or just helps us picture how a person might go through using the product and being served by Inherently?
sure. So I mean, I think a lot of it is quite a sensitive and emotional area, and it's lowering the bar to access, but doing it in a an approachable way so people can get better prepared. And so the solution is we work through financial advisors who also have a compliance pain point where they've got to demonstrate that they're helping their clients prepare. Oftentimes
Hmm.
they don't have a way of doing this, or at least demonstrating that they're doing this. So clients get sent a questionnaire, and then we have a signature legacy preparedness score where people answer a guided, intuitive journey, answering questions about what they've currently got in place, what they would like to happen, their wishes, and then we provide them with a legacy preparedness score, very similar to sort of like a credit score, which you'll say, "Hey, Vip, you're 62 out of 100 prepared, and here are some of the gaps that you've got, and these
Mhm.
are the impacts of it." And then we offer them a digital journey for them to fulfill those gaps and increase their score to be better prepared. And I think for a lot of people, when they're going through this journey, it can have a double impact. So those that have talked about it and have broached the subject, it can give them a level of assurance and go, oh, great, I've been thinking about this. It's covered the areas. I'm glad there's nothing else I haven't forgotten. And therefore, they're more prepared and those that have been sort of proactive about it. And it can help them fulfill those gaps that they know they need to do, but they just haven't quite got around to doing, or give them assurance that they have no holes. But for a lot of people who haven't addressed this or don't know where to start, and going through the journey, people have sort of said, oh, so that's what I need to do now. And oh, that's what the reason is. And then they can make a choice of how they fulfill it or if they're comfortable with those risks or not. But different clients have sort of said, I feel a lot of words like peace of mind, or I've got greater assurance, or this is really going to help. And lots of people say, actually, I'm going to send this to either the generation below, to my son or daughter. They've just had their first child, and I'd love for them to think about it because they'd love to, for example, set up a will with guardianship in it. Or they think, actually, I'm going to send this to my parent because I'm worried, I'm their executor, and I'm worried about doing this. And so I had comments about saying this would be really helpful for my mum or my dad or aunt or uncle to do. And so it's really that peace of mind as well as actually moving the needle from this is something I'm procrastinating, I know I've got to do, to seamlessly helping them prepare and provide that peace of mind for them.
It's awesome. It seems like you're also enabling the wealth advisor to be almost like a shepherd, to help people through the process. Like it's, almost as much counseling as it is, business acumen.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't always the easiest conversations to have.
Yeah.
Depending on your approach, death and taxes, and you can lead into it in different ways. But especially for a lot of new advisors who maybe haven't built up that skill set yet, this is a real tool to empower them to be able to cover this way and demonstrate and extend the value that they're offering in a sensitive way. Plus, actually, a lot of these topics require thought. And so a lot of people say, I'll leave that with me and I'm going to chat about it and digest it and we're going to come to a conclusion. And having a digital journey allows them to have that space to consider it rather than trying to fit it into a 90-minute conversation with their financial advisor.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Help me understand, estate planning is not a new industry. So what about this product and solution that you guys have developed is really, unique and special and, an opportunity that something people haven't seen before?
Sure. I mean, I think firstly, there's a digitization of the journey that's starting to happen, and I think that lowers the barrier to entry for lots of people because
Nice.
we can reduce the price point, and so we can start offering services that were considered for the very wealthy down to the
Yeah,
mass affluent and then on to the masses. And so, firstly, I think it's increasing the access to these services. But then,
fantastic.
secondly, with the advent of AI, we can start offering additional services to start fulfilling some of those bits or demonstrating risk areas or a lot of adjacent services from both from a protection side or from inheritance tax and tax optimization that we can start offering them. So we're very excited about the future of the venture and where we can go, obviously, which is going to be tested and validated as we go. But I think what it offers is really democratizing what previously may have been just for private clients, solicitors, to bring it down to a much larger market.
Fantastic. Well, and these days there's a lot of these, you know, robo advisors and that kind of thing on the internet as well. They're making the advisor services a little bit more accessible. A lot of times to folks that may not be able to afford a wealth advisor or just don't know which advisor to trust. And so obviously making these types of services like available to everybody is a fantastic opportunity as well.
Yeah, what we said inherently, I mean, we're starting with we're a startup and we're launching through financial advisors. But ultimately, when you think about entrepreneurial journeys and business plans and target addressable markets, everybody needs a plan.
Mm.
Everybody wants and needs that peace of mind. And so, yeah, there's a great opportunity to not only just serve those that with sort of mass affluence, but serve a much larger market through many channels.
Nice. Well, tell me a little bit about the momentum you guys are feeling right now. Where are you guys in the stage of building the company? How many folks are using it already? That type of thing.
Sure. So we're still fairly early in the journey. So we've got what we call design partners, a number of financial advising firms who really see a pain point on their side they're under a regulator here in the UK called the FCA. And the
Mm.
FCA language to them is, as a financial advisor, you have a duty of care to mitigate against foreseeable harm. What that
Mm.
traditionally means for most advisors is they sit down, they'll chat about the investment returns and chat about family situations. Then at the end, they might say, oh, have you got a will? Have you updated your LPA? But they might say, "Oh, can I leave you with some homework to go and fill that in if you've not done it?" And they might be doing that year after year after year.
Right.
When what inherently offers them is a digitized journey for them to have an auditable trail where they can demonstrate that their clients are going to have foreseeable harm when they don't take action, and it provides them a digital journey to mitigate against that foreseeable harm by offering digital solutions for them to get the gaps and fulfill them. So, firstly, we've got a number of design partners who have signed up and have started using the tool, and we've been testing with their clients and getting some interesting traction. So, in some of the early testing that we've done, roughly 20-25% of clients have taken what we're calling meaningful action within a month, which means they've gone, "You've demonstrated that I need to update my power of attorney here in the UK or a will. I'm going to go away and do that." And these are monetizable paid actions. There are other ones where it might be, "I need to check who my nomination forms for my pension or insurance are going to," that are also happening in the background. Beyond them, we're then testing with clients, and we can see that a number of those are borne out by the sort of larger mass market stats of not having wills, not having powers of attorneys in place, or maybe, especially in the UK, that they should consider other solutions like a trust to align with what they want to happen with their values, such as provide a legacy for their grandchildren to go to school or to get on the housing ladder here in the UK.
Mm.
And actually, that might be a better and more appropriate solution than what they've currently got in place. And so, yeah, we are demonstrating some of those unmet financial needs, but also some of the gaps that they've got in what they would like to happen and
No,
what is.
that's awesome. There's no better way to build than doing it with the people who are going to be using the product, right? So like co-creating with them is epic as far as that opportunity and getting that customer feedback in real time, so that you're building the product they're going to use and not just one that you think is a good idea, right? Um,
Exactly. You've got to be data driven and see, where people are getting stuck, what they're like. Is it intuitive? Is it not? Do they feel comfortable as a motive topic? Have we got it right? So,
Right.
yeah,
Well, and when you hand people documents and you just check up with them, then a year later, you have no idea where the bottleneck was or where they got stuck. You just know that those documents didn't get filled out or they did. In this case, you can actually see the whole journey digitally. So I assume you guys can actually track where they are in the process and what kind of thing is holding them up.
that's right. So we're not trying to make too many large say assumptions. We are breaking it down into bite size and validating as we go to prove out, let's say, our business model and assumptions. And we've got lots of ideas of where we think we can add a value. We've got other things to prove out in terms of business model and other bits. But so we've got waiting lists and we've got design partners signed up who are very eager to use this with their clients. And we're starting to talk to their clients and obviously get feedback as we go along. So yeah,
That's
so we're
awesome.
still in some of the early days, but we're getting some exciting traction from those that want to use the solution and some of the data that's coming behind from their clients that are using the solution as well.
It's awesome. Well, there's nothing like that feeling when, a family member goes to the hospital and, mom or dad looks at you and says, "Do you know where the documents are?" Right? And it's like they're somewhere in the house that they have hidden because they didn't want to talk to you about them before. It's kind of that awkward parent-child relationship where they may have them in a drawer near their bed or something like that. And you're like, man, if these were digitized and the person that's managing mom and dad's money is got all that information and passwords and key info, it just makes the whole process better, especially if children have access to it also so they can see and kind of keep up with the information. There's no
It's
fear of fire and all that kind of stuff, right?
I mean, there are different ways here in the UK. You've got to have a physical copy of a will. We've not quite gone onto the full digitized, but having it in the right place and knowing where it is. I mean, doing user testing, you hear lots of stories of, "It took me 4 or 5 months to track down Dad's will, and it had been such storage, and then that company had been bought out, and then that had been bought out, and it took me a while." And actually, I'd love just to offer my kids the peace of mind that they know where it is and that they're going to have access to it at the right time, and that we've had that discussion in advance and they know about it.
Yeah, because nobody wants to talk about those events happening, but you definitely want to be prepared when they do. And that's that awkward tension, right? You don't want to talk about it, but at the same time, you want to be prepared for it. And so you guys are making a way for this to be easier. Excited to see something like that happen. So tell me about you've obviously been in the business space for many years. You've built businesses and worked on businesses in multiple different countries. What are two of the three of the lessons that you've learned in building businesses and doing consulting that have really kind of stayed with you and impact the things that you guys are doing today and inherently?
Sure. I mean, this is both on a personal matter, on a business level. Some of the values that we have here at ARC really sort of summarize it well. Of business is about people, and so people
Hmm.
matter. And I suppose that's a way of building with a user-centric mindset. Um, but the way you interact and do business, I think, is really key. And so not only building products and services, but how you process and do business is really important, and how you conduct yourself. And that goes again with others first, about serving them and how you approach both on a professional life, but also how you build products, about how you can best serve others to fulfill their needs, and jobs to be done. I also think, you and I were chatting just before we hit record. Lived in lots of different places, and life's too short not to trial things and prototype things, both on a professional and personal level. So take the risk, take that job across country, move continents, try different things, and I've seen it's just created a real deep sense of not only satisfaction and of joy. But it does come with risks, but it's worth taking those risks.
That's awesome. It always is fascinating to me. There's some people that just have that willingness and that desire to take a risk and to try something new. And there's other people that'll spend their entire life living in the same home and have no need to move whatsoever. I do remember after going and living overseas for a bunch of years, traveling back and visiting, a previous home and seeing like names on the mailboxes as I drove down the street. I was like, man, those people haven't ever left that house. And it kind of fascinated me because of the journey that I had been on, right? And the opportunities, the things that we had done over the years. But I think it's fascinating just getting to spend time with entrepreneurs, scrappy at building things, willing to work hard and, go the extra mile and just willing to take a risk. It sounds like your wife has some of that in her as well, like willing to travel across the world with you, willing to trust your entrepreneurial instincts. Is she also an entrepreneur? Is she building companies also? Or is it just she's willing to take these adventures?
Um, Great question, Vit. My wife is a anti-corruption expert, and so she has worked at a systemic
Interesting.
level to work at systems to implement that, both in the US at the SEC level, across sub-Saharan Africa, working with local communities, and here at the UK and at UN level. And I think actually the alignment behind it isn't just a maybe a process like a business or entrepreneurial journey, but being really aligned about your identity and what you'd like to achieve. So
Hmm.
she runs her own consultancy now, uh, titled End Impact, and it's thinking about what the sort of end impact you want to have in mind, and then working backwards and being really clear on what you feel your role in life is and how you can best serve and use your talents to serve people. And then when you've done that, then the next order question is, well, where do we go and do that, and how's the best to do it? And so I think being aligned on that really has freed us up to better serve people when you're confident in not only your skills but your place in the world of what you can and sometimes can't offer.
That's fascinating and so cool that y'all been matched that way. That's awesome. One question I have for you, because it came up in a conversation recently, we use the word impact a lot, right? At Eagle, we specifically say direct impact versus donated impact. Donated impact being, let's make a lot of money and give some money away to a really good cause, and that's great. Like we need more people to be doing that. But we love direct impact, where when you're actually building the product and the product when it's sold, when it works, when it when a person uses it, it actually has the impact that you want to generate. So you're making money as you're having that impact. So every single dollar that comes in can be an impactful dollar. There's a lot of different examples of that in the Eagle portfolio. But as you guys look, one of the conversations we had the other day is sometimes we want to have an impact, but the impact that we think we're having and what it's actually doing in the life of the person that we're helping may not be the same. So tell me a little bit about what you've seen, especially when it comes to serving in places like Africa or even in parts of the UK with folks in need. The difference between the impact that you guys are trying to have and the actual transformation that's happening in the life of the person. Have you seen that play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of different considerations. So when I worked for the debt fund, one of the matrices and sort of due diligence we would do is on the impact models of the businesses we were lending to. And I think if you use the UK word of the social enterprise, people can sit either at the highly enterprising level or the highly social level, and they can have different models to serve those different needs about whether they've got sort of inherent impact, or whether they are making money to then have the impact at the end of it. And I think, I think it can sometimes causality is always an issue when it comes to measuring the impact reports and how can you measure that. From what I've learned is there's got to be, from my experience, there's got to be a level of pragmatism, and sometimes there's a journey there. So using inherently as an example,
Yeah.
everybody needs a plan, but we can't start by offering that plan to everybody. And so we've started at the mass affluent and those that have financial advisors. Now, I know you were talking before about those that sort of more vulnerable clients and serving them. We would love to do that, but there's a level of pragmatism of proving out a business model and then getting the unit economics down to a point where you can start offering it to the mass market. And so I think sometimes you can fall into the trap saying, will it impact a sort of mass affluent client with the impact we inherently will have? Is the same impact it will be with somebody who's more vulnerable. At the same time, nobody's either more worthy or less worthy of it. But sometimes there's a level of pragmatism where, both from a commercial side, sometimes you have to start with somewhere. As long as you've got a roadmap and an impact map to get to that point, there's sometimes a bit of a journey to do both. But I
Yeah.
think your question about causality is a tricky one, so and not one that I've got a well-rounded answer to, but it's one that we always try and bear in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talk about serving some of the end user clients well sometimes, and sometimes, my question is, is the thing we're doing for them actually helping them, or does it just make us feel good about pretending to help them, as it were? And so, I'm excited about a product like Inherently, where it actually is serving the end client. Their life can be more at peace. Their protection can be more in place by using the actual product. Um, so as you guys look, a lot of times people have like an impact number or some type of score that they're chasing. Is there a number that you guys are chasing or a specific thing that you guys are looking for in kind of y'all's impact levels at Inherently, like number of families that we're serving or something like that?
It's a great question, Vip, and it's not one that we've put sort of pinned up on the board, so to speak, the metaphorical board, and put a number against. I suppose it's baked into mixing the metaphors here inherently. Um, that I suppose by seeing if we are moving people's legacy preparedness scores from 50 to 80,
Hmm.
then we know we are making a difference by helping people get better prepared. So we could track it on that level. But we haven't set a target where we said we want to help X people. But it's a great encouragement and charge for us as well. But I suppose there's a way we can measure some of it on one level. But yeah.
Awesome. Dude, it's a work in progress. It's one of those things about being an entrepreneur. It is a journey. And so we're always, there's always opportunities every day to get better and to learn. So tell me about the future. If you guys do this work really, really well, more people get their, legacy kind of planning prepared, estate planning kind of taken care of. What's a future look like 5 years from now, or even 10 years?
Yeah, no, great question. I think in our roadmap and looking at it, leveraging the capabilities of AI to keep reducing not only the price point, but the capabilities to offer people. I mean, here in the UK, there's a range of people's life changes, from blended families to changing situations. We've had some changes in the budget here, bringing in a greater scope and net for inheritance tax. And so having a system where people can, it's never going to be a high engagement platform, but where they can get assurance regularly that their plans are going to be carried out in the way they want to be by leveraging AI based on a tax optimization, by getting the information and advice they need to change for when they have new grandchildren, or they're making loans from Bank of Mum and Dad to their children to get on the housing ladder, and that they know that it all joins up in a seamless way, without sort of a set and forget, and then there are all these big gaps opening, so they can have peace of mind. And there's equity across family structures, because that often can lead to conflict at vulnerable times as well. Is really where the vision is, and to create that infrastructure not only for financial advisors but a number of different channel partners to offer that to their clients, um, is the real end goal.
So tech-enabled peace of mind, like across this space.
Yeah, I mean, being that peace of mind conduit and creating the infrastructure so that we're making not only families' lives easier, but financial advisors can offer that peace of mind to their clients. Insurers can offer it to them. Mortgage brokers, There's a whole range of people, and that we can get down to not only the mass affluent, but also to the mass market who may choose to get it through a slightly different channel as well.
Nice. I want to take a different angle really quick on the line of questioning and just ask, tell me about a person in like the UK right now, if they don't have this type of product set up, if they don't have their legacy planning done, what does it look like and how difficult is the process? Are people at risk of, not being able to get, inheritance from family members? Are people at risk of, not having wealth transfer over? How bad can it be if things aren't set up through a company like Inherently?
Yeah, I mean, great question. And it really depends on their situation. And so sometimes there's this, a lot of it is an education piece. People say, oh, but the law's on my side because X will happen. And then you say, well, actually, you fall under intestate laws, and this is actually what will happen.
Mm,
And actually, it's not only just about the what will happen procedurally and the way your money will be distributed,
mm,
but also about some of the process. And so here in the UK, you have a certain timeline to pay inheritance tax. But
mm,
actually, to get probate and to have access to the estate and to start distributing it is often much longer than that time frame. So then there's cash flow issues and people having to sell assets or take on lending to pay off that because you've got to pay the government and the inheritance tax first.
mm,
So it can create a load of stresses at a lot of time where families are increasingly not sort of co-locating. You could have somebody who's in one part of the UK and their mother or their mother-in-law dies in another, and actually that just creates a whole range of issues as well. And so being prepared can't resolve all of those things, but it can lessen a lot of the pain and it can lessen a lot of the additional costs and ultimately a lot of the distress to the family. So yeah, I mean it's hard to talk about a specific circumstance, but if especially if you want your money to go to a particular either cause or something that's close to your heart. Sort of, it could be getting your children on the property ladder, or you're worried about divorce and sideways leakage of inheritance, or you're really interested in your grandkids going through a particular type of school or helping them and see them flourish. Then there are ways in which you can do that, but without having the right plan set up, you could risk what you've worked really a lifetime to achieve, and to that legacy could be not lost, but you could not fulfill what it could do otherwise.
gotcha. Okay. So the laws do take care of people in such a way that there's not, complete and utter loss opportunities there. But it definitely makes the process a lot more challenging to not
Yes,
have things in
they
place.
could lose money from inheritance tax, or um, one of the risks they could do is they could have a very outdated will that charges them a lot to settle at the end.
Mm.
When on a personal level and do the right thing, I don't think that's particularly morally tasteful, and that we should offer them a better solution. And there are better solutions. So if we can point out to people and just educate them and saying there are different probate solutions that are more equitable, without giving away a large chunk of your estate and things like that at the end, then even some people who are sort of semi-prepared, then we can help them pass on more of what they're really hard to do and to build up over a lifetime.
Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit, if as folks have been listening to the podcast, if they're starting to realize, man, maybe I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. What could I be doing to get more prepared? So, is there a website or a place you'd recommend people going just to understand a little bit more about the whole process, and to try to feel more peaceful about the situation they're going through?
Yeah, certainly. So our website is inherently.ai. Currently, it's because it's a B2B proposition. It's not quite there, but go and check it out. There's a number of different analog checklists you could look into, but at a high level, the way I like to think of it, sort of, if you put it in three buckets, if people want to remember it, is are you financially prepared? So, and that's really looking at your income, and if you got hit by the proverbial red bus here in the UK, would your family and would your partners and spouses uh, be financially resilient and be able to cope? And then there's the legal and legacy. Do you have the legal documents? Here in the UK, that generally means having a power of attorney and having a will as the
Mm.
base minimum. And then the final one is the family and trusted representatives. Do your family know where your will is? Do they know that you really want to pass on this particular sentimental item to them? Have you had a conversation? And even if you don't have a funeral preference or something like that, it would be really give them peace of mind to let them know, I'm happy for you to decide. Don't stress, because I think a lot of people happens when somebody dies and they'll say, I didn't know if mum wanted to be buried or cremated. I didn't know if she wanted a certain song or to be remembered in a certain way. And so
Hmm.
certain things you can do about, even if just writing them down and putting in sort of a letter of wishes or a note for people, or having that conversation if you're brave enough, can really add a lot of value as things that you could do in the next sort of 2 weeks.
Nice. So what I hear is don't wait. If you haven't had these conversations, if you're not prepared already, don't wait any longer. Take the time to look up some information, to have the difficult conversation so that you can be prepared.
Yeah, and sometimes it's maybe not such a difficult conversation, but it's really an active love to the next generation to help them give them peace of mind as well as yourself. And so I think if you view it through that lens as not only a sort of dutiful thing, but as an act of love and as part of your legacy in having that conversation, then that's a great thing.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for taking the time, Pete. Really appreciate the conversation today. Excited about the work you guys are doing at ARC and definitely through Inherently.
We're delighted to partner and work with Eagle and really enjoyed the conversation, Vip, and looking forward to continue working with you guys.